news for people who can't stand the news. This question's for me, Tim, and I'm just wondering how it feels. I think it's undemocratic not to have debates. Is that still the case where Debbie hasn't agreed to debate you at all?
She has not agreed to debate me. Back in April, I sent her a letter. I sent it to her campaign headquarters, her Super PAC headquarters, and her DNC office. I've yet to receive any response from her letter. I confronted her in person, and she refused to talk about it. She's been confronted time and again by people in the news media and by ordinary folks videotaping it on their cell phones. And we just made a TV commercial about it that we launched about a week ago, which it's a montage of Debbie's greatest hits. It starts off with Debbie being asked about the value of debates, and she hypocritically says how important debates are in a democracy. And then the rest of the commercial is people asking her if she's going to debate her opponent, and she just runs from the camera each time. I think she won't debate me because, quite frankly, she's afraid. She cannot defend her record on the issues. And, we've talked about payday loans. We've talked about her fundraising practices. We've talked about her drug warrior stances. And that's still scratching the surface. The national news just a few weeks ago was filled with these stories, which is an ongoing crisis here, of the water pollution coming out of Lake Okeechobee, the blue-green algae tide, which is killing everything in its path. I took a trip up there a few weeks ago. When you get near the water, you got to wear a gas mask, a mask over your face because it's so toxic. The manatees are dying, the fish are dying, and you take a look at what has caused this. And it's the big agricultural companies and big sugar companies that have been using Lake Okeechobee as a cesspool for decades, dumping, fertilizer runoff, phosphates and phosphorus and nitrates that are in the water. Some years ago, former governor of Florida, Charlie Crist, came out with a plan for the state to exercise eminent domain, to buy up the sugar plantations just south of Okeechobee, convert it back to marshland, the natural way it was for centuries, for eons, and allow Lake Okeechobee to essentially flow naturally into the Everglades, the river of grass, as it's been called. The marshland, the plant life, would naturally filtrate all that fertilizer, all those chemicals, and it would replenish the aquifer of the Everglades, which is being depleted, which is becoming salinated because of rising ocean levels. And, Wasserman Schultz and a lot of other politicians here in Florida, in fact, Miami Herald had a report last week, over the last 20 years, big sugar companies have given $57 million to Florida politicians of both political parties. And Wasserman Schultz, some of her biggest funders are the sugar magnates, and she's dragged her feet. They all have. They haven't pushed for a solution to this problem, and it's now becoming quite acute. It's getting to the point where the drinking water could become contaminated. And I mean, here in Florida, water is everything to this economy. Now, this is an economy that runs on tourism, on recreation, and then you look at our drinking water. Right. What happens when that all gets polluted? Where do we go? So, these politicians have not been good stewards. They have not taken care of the people. They have not taken care of the planet. They've taken care of themselves, and voters are sick and tired of it.
That's amazing. I guess we already know where Tim stands on fracking. Obviously, he's against fracking. Is that correct, Tim?
Absolutely. That is correct. I'd like to see a ban on fracking, and Wasserman Schultz is kneeling out on it. She refuses to come out and really say where she stands on fracking. And there are folks who want to frack the Everglades here. It's unbelievable.
I'm going to be going, after I go to Philly, I'm going to go to Flint, Michigan to look at the lead poisoning and what's going on now that the cameras left. Looks like I ought to go to Florida instead of going to Flint, just based on what you said.
I'm telling you, this is our Flint, Michigan, and Floridians are mad about it. I would urge everybody who's listening, and you too, Tim, come down here to Florida. I'll tell you, the next 6 weeks here in Florida are going to be so important, I think, for the future of this democracy. If and when we defeat Wasserman Schultz on August 30th, it's going to show that there's no incumbent that's safe. It's going to send a real loud and clear message to the Democratic Party that it has got to reform, or we will pick off these corporate-dominated incumbents one by one, or wholesale in 2018, go after a lot of them. And, we're doing it through the power of the grassroots, through thousands of people contributing just a little bit of their money and their time, and having, a real progressive agenda in common.